Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Blockchain Gaming News Roundup on blockchaingaming.biz and Games TX. Today is Friday, the 28th of March. I'm Jenna Jordan, and with me is John Jordan. Hi, John. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Finally got a reason to wear my Ultra cap again. Not had it for a long time. It's been very quiet actually around Ultra, hasn't it? So it's good to see that it's sort of this new life coming into this project. They've announced this week a new COO.
Yeah.
They had a new CEO which came in December 2024, and with that, this sort of whole new vision, quite bold. They call it sort of an aggressive strategy, change of sort of. Yeah, much more sort of marketing, getting out there a lot more. But can you just tell us sort of briefly? It's not sort of a major news thing. Tell us briefly what it sort of entails.
Yeah, so I mean, Ultra's been around for I think sort of 7 years. It's been basically building this sort of Steam on the blockchain, like a PC game distribution platform, and obviously that's a sort of complex technical sort of problem to solve. And they've built their own blockchain as well. So they have the Ultra blockchain that was originally based on the EOS SDK. So they built their own blockchain, and that allows game developers to actually sell licenses of their game. So you buy a game as you would do on any other platform, but now it's an NFT, so you can effectively sort of resell it. And also they have loads of other stuff as well. So they have like a streaming platform and a sort of like an esports sort of platform, and they're sort of trying to build these building blocks into place. But as with all sort of these markets, it becomes a sort of what they call a cold start problem. If you don't have any users, then it's very hard to get game developers to sort of give you their games. And if you don't get games exclusively, then people would just go to other platforms. So I think, as far as I've seen, and I've sort of been in touch with the founding CEOs before, technically they knew what they were doing and built this sort of platform, but it was a little bit sort of it was very hard for them to gain any sort of actual sort of traction in terms of users, because you're having to download another PC client. And so basically people have got Steam if they're willing to get PC games, or everyone on PC games has got Steam, and then there's Epic Games who people get that for Fortnite, and they give away loads of free games. So people have 2 launchers already. There are various other ones as well, and so to have this blockchain one, it's not compelling enough for people. So that's sort of been their problem. They've been very quiet last year. And they do have a couple of games in development. One is called Ashes of Mankind, which is sort of their exclusive shooter. It actually looks quite nice, but again, that sort of suffered a little bit, I think, from not just having a lot of. I mean, it's not live yet. It's going to early access next quarter. So it's, there's a bit of a community around it, but I wouldn't say there's a very strong community. Like they did an NFT sale, and that didn't go terribly well for them. So I think it's like a lot of blockchain projects. There's sort of innovation and, in this case, sort of technical sort of expertise to build what they've done, but they've not been able to connect that with any sort of audience. Not even a DGen audience, really, which is, and I guess that's partly because DGen audiences going to get into DGen type games. So if you're building a PC game, that tends to be, a bigger sort of slower process. So the other sort of weird thing they had from a marketing point of view was they had 2 CEOs. So they had co-CEOs, which is always odd. Because normally you'd have like a CEO who's basically running it, and then you'd have like a CTO and a COO, operating officer, and maybe a strategy officer, and there's product officer. There's lots of C-level people you can sort of have, CFO for finances. But to have 2 CEOs and then not really, that seemed odd because you don't really know who the CEO is, and neither of them were very, what I would call, forward, putting themselves forward. They weren't. They're both French, and they're sort of both
very CEO-ish.
Well, I mean, you can have different. So I don't know. The role of CEO is very, very different. I think certainly in the States, where the CEO is sort of almost like a figurehead. The CEO, can be, you can have a founder CEO, Mark Zuckerberg or someone like that, or Elon Musk, I suppose, to some degree. Although he hasn't founded all the companies he runs now, but there's someone who's sort of knows how the company works and drives the vision. That's quite rare, but you often have the CEO is often sometimes like a figurehead who's just sort of brought in to to give interviews almost, and the COO sort of does the operations, and the technical CTO, those other people are actually running the company, and the CEO sort of swanning around being like the public face of company X and telling everyone how great it is, and sort of Ultra, I think, had two CEOs who were technically good, but neither of them were. They weren't forward facing and going out and getting, come on, there's great things happening, and they were quite self sort of deprecating in a way. So it looks like the new C-level team. This guy called Gus. I won't try and pronounce his second name. I think he's Dutch. He's got his massive beard, and he's seems like a very forward positioning sort of entrepreneur. He's done a TV series in France, and he's run this consultancy company, and clearly they brought him on to be, as it says in the sort of blog, a communicator and sort of driving it forward. And he's just announced, as you say, this COO who he previously worked with in his consulting company. And the two original founders are still there. One of them is called the chief blockchain officer, David Hansen. So they're still there. But clearly now for Ultra, which has cost a lot of money to build, they've really got to sort of juice it. They've got to get people into it. They've got to make it sound like an exciting sort of place and sort of get on with it. So I'm hoping to talk to the new CEO actually in the next couple of weeks for my podcast. So we'll get a bit of an idea there. I guess for me, Ultra definitely needed this, so that's good. I guess when you have a CEO and a COO who've come in from outside the industry, so neither of these two new guys have any experience in games at all. That's in a sense that's a weakness, because the games industry, like any industry, has sort of nuances about what a good game is, and if you've not been in the industry, you sort of don't know that. In some ways, it can be a strength because you're not sort of restricted by all the thinking about what you can do. So we'll sort of see. We'll get an idea of his strategy. I sort of think it's probably this. They've got this guy to come in and sort of shake it all up and get Ultra noticed, and maybe see if they can get someone tech company to come in and buy it, because it needs that. I don't think they have enough money to do the marketing that you sort of need. Because they're not trying to sell a 10,000 NFT collection. They're trying to get millions of people to download this thing and download games for it. So it's not an easy task. So anyway, but exciting that you can wear your hat, because we've always said the Ultra hat is by far and away the best baseball hat we've ever been bought or been given, and it's sad it's not been used.
I wear it quite a bit actually, but
yeah.
I myself aware wearing it on the these sort of roundups, and just because you want it to be connected to some kind of news that's been, and so it feels odd to wear something that's not had any news. So that's good.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's crack on. So Gunzilla Games have finally announced that the Gun token is launching on the 31st of March on Binance. Ahead of the launch, Binance has enabled staking of, I don't know which ones it is. It's BNB and it's USDC, and anyway, these trading pairs. You can stake tokens in exchange for a future airdrop of Gun tokens. So the Gun token will be enable kind of trading of in-game assets off the grid, and in conjunction with the launch of the token, the Gun's mainnet is also launching at the same time. So all that's happening on Monday, 31st of March.
Yeah.
Is this exciting news? Are you excited?
Well, it's something people have been waiting for, given that Off the Grid is the first console game, and it's still the case that it seems a little bit unclear how many sort of people are playing that game. It's free to play, so obviously probably a whole bunch of people have played it, and how many are sort of continuing to play it is sort of the problem. The uncertainty. Obviously, it's a blockchain game, so we can see the activity on the Guns blockchain, which is the Avalanche sort of based blockchain that Gunzilla Games have created for their game. They actually have two games on it, and they have a mobile game as well as Off the Grid, and also they're trying to get other people to come to that blockchain. Obviously, it's connected to all the console stuff, so you think that would be a selling point for other developers. But when you have a test net, then nothing has value on it. I mean, you can own 1 million gun tokens on the test net, and you sort of, I guess you would hope you'd get 1 million tokens then on the main net when it goes live. But it's anything on a test net is not real activity. So we'll get to see now people who are playing off the grid, presumably all their stuff that is currently on the test net will convert to the main net when it goes live. So all their guns and skins and such like in the game will be now tradable on the main net for however many gun tokens it's priced at, and now the gun token will have a dollar value. I've not seen any I've not sort of really looked into any ideas of what the gun token will be valued at. Obviously, they've sold a whole bunch of it in sort of pre-sales and through investments and stuff, so it will have had a value prior to the market going live. But I guess the most interesting thing is one we'll start to get a good idea then of how many people are actually playing off the grid, and whether it is people have been quoting 15 million wallets have been created on the test net. But as I say, that's meaningless because it's test net and people just creating wallets, or there's no reason not to create wallets on testnet. You might create a lot of wallets for other reasons. Now we'll get to see, probably with a blockchain game with live value on consoles, how many people are playing that. So it looks like, DatRadar have been tracking something. So 150,000 sort of daily active unique wallets. It looks like that. I mean, if that's the case, that would be one of the top blockchain games in terms of on-chain activity. My gut feeling is I find it really hard to judge actually how well the game is doing. The only thing, sort of the external metric that I've been looking at is Twitch streams, which is not obviously, which is sort of a slightly indirect view of the popularity of the game. And obviously, it launched with Shroud and Ninja and Tim the Tatman, or these big $1 million marketing, and did really well. Loads of streams then, and it's dropped off. I mean, it's not gone down to zero, but it's not. I don't think it's in the top 100 most streamed games on Twitch. And I guess, given we have to always remember, they have raised over $100 million to make this game. It wasn't a blockchain game originally, so they really are. This is the one blockchain game that could be said to have a budget in sort of AAA sort of size. So this isn't a sort of a game that can survive on 10,000 daily active unique wallets. I mean, this is as mass market as we get. So they do really need to, they need to have the 10 million registered sort of players, and they are competing with, I'm not quite Fortnite, I suppose, but they are competing with the big shooter games. So it is important from that point of view. It's like all these things. It's an important starting point for us to get an idea of. Like most things, it probably won't be a total spectacular success. It probably won't be a total disaster. It'll be somewhere in the middle. And then, when you launch a game, if it's not one of those two things, you then have the hard yards of just building a game and marketing and doing the updates and blah 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 blah. And that, and I think they would still say it's in early access. Games are in early access probably for a couple of years until they formally go live. So, but at least the mainnet going live is a big thing from that point of view. That it sort of sets the standard. Now we can sort of judge it. So, I'm looking forward to it from that point of view.
In related news, there was also Gunzilla Games also announced it bought the games magazine Game Informer this week. That was quite surprising, I think.
No idea.
seemed
bizarre.
Oh,
just
yeah.
It's just bizarre.
That's Game Informer. What we need to say about that.
Game Informer is a much loved sort of, it was the biggest games magazine because it was basically GameStop, the big retailer, when they were still retailing games. I think if you are a member of GameStop's subscription, VIP thing, which everyone was, because you got loads of discounts, you got this magazine for free. So it was a massive circulation, and loads of people grew up reading, when they were reading games magazines, reading Game Informer. And obviously they shut it down because no one reads magazines anymore, and even the digital stuff is very hard to monetize. So why Gunzilla of all people? I mean, they've raised tons of money, but the fact these magazines shut down is because they don't make money. So it's sort of, unless they're going to subsidize it, I just can't see how the economics work out. They've said that the thing's going to be totally independent, so they're not going to blockchainize it in any way, and presumably it's not going to write about off the grid all the time, because those people who wrote that magazine probably hate blockchain games. So yeah, this whole thing just seems odd. But maybe there's some sort of ulterior motive that will appear at some point.
Well, the motive they've sort of said is that they sort of they want to sort of join in the fight to keep game journalism and that sort of thing.
Yeah, but that's
times, but
that's moved on. I mean, you can do that. You can do that by subscribing to people's Substacks. I mean, just it's just why would it? If EA aren't doing it, if Take-Two aren't doing it, why is Gunzilla Games doing it? It just seems very, very odd. Ulteriorly, makes you think there's some part of their strategy where they think having a friendly magazine is going to be useful to them for some mass market thing. But they've made all this fuss that it's independent, so they've sort of. It could just be, something. It may just be, from my way of thinking, that Gunzilla have just raised too much money, and they just have these. The CEO can have these pet projects where he wastes millions of dollars on these things. I mean,
yeah.
Could be as easy, and that's fine if Off the Grid's a massive, enormous bazillion-dollar hit. So,
Yeah. So anyway, after last week's news of Jurassic World teaming up with the Sandbox in sort of conjunction with the Sandbox's next Alpha Season 5, it's now been announced that Season 5 is coming on the 31st of March as well, also on Monday, so let's go on then. So obviously it sort of launches with a major theme being around Jurassic World and the experience and the NFTs that are coming with that. But there's also loads of other experiences. I think when this goes live, we might not be able to talk about all those experiences. Are going to be announced in a couple of hours' time. But over 40 experiences, I think, and 65 NFT collections and hundreds and hours of fun. You're already having hundreds of hours of fun with the Sandbox Daily, aren't you?
Not hundreds, but so I've been I've resurrected my old Sandbox Daily YouTube channel, so I've been playing a experience daily for the last couple of weeks. So those are the sort of the UGC sort of unbranded experiences. So anyone with the sort of gumption can at the moment and a Sandbox Land NFT can go and make an experience and put it live on the blockchain, and people can play it. So there's a whole bunch of those. I mean, they're some of them are actually quite good. Obviously, they're sort of limited. They're sort of often have do these missions and then you sort of finish the game. There's not. I've only been playing single player ones, so there are a whole bunch of multiplayer ones I need to play as well. But the single player ones tend to be like a limited sort of amount of sort of fun. But some of them are quite. I mean, some of them are quite wacky. There's one I was playing yesterday. It's quite a famous one, I think, called Reggae Golf, and it's a 12-hole golf course.
Reggae golf.
Reggae.
As in the music genre.
Yes.
Reggae. Yes.
So it's like set in Jamaica, and they all talk in. Or the text, and you talk to people who's all sort of patois English. It's a bit odd, really. It's just very odd. But it really, in some ways, it's really well done. Like, there's some UI stuff, as you'd sort of expect. But in general, once you sort of, all these sort of things, I find you have to get a bit confused for 5 minutes, then you work out what's happening. So, but sort of the basic problem in that one is that the sandbox is not well designed for playing a sort of sports game like golf. So it's very clunky on the mechanics of actual golf, which is sort of a problem. And I think that's, in some ways, that's what you get with the sandbox UGC stuff is, people who are not professional developers often are just making their own fun things. And that's sort of the joy of it, but equally that's the weakness of it. So there's a whole bunch of interesting stuff there. But this stuff, as you say, the alpha season is sort of the proper developers, and actually a lot of it's made by the sandbox for these brands. So the big Jurassic Park thing, the dinosaurs have been like dinosaur eggs have gone live to mint them out. So you take your dinosaur egg and go into the Jurassic World sort of enclosure, and you have to sort of hatch your egg and level up the dinosaur. So there's a whole bunch of stuff there. But it's running for 6 weeks. They're giving away, usual thing, loads of sand and. I'm quite looking forward to it, actually. So I did play a bit of the first alpha and then sort of got a bit, waylaid by other things. But as I say, this year when I spoke to Sebastian, in 2025 they hope to move from alpha seasons into beta seasons, so there'll be 4 seasons this year like there were 4 last year, and every one of those just sort of gets more people in, they hope, and gets them closer to launch. I still think there is an issue with having these seasons where you sort of pile everyone in and then switch it off, and I presume over time some of these branded experiences will start to become permanent, because they need to build up that flywheel, not just sort of pile everyone in and then switch it off. So obviously you sort of need to have a plan around that. But the Jurassic Park one seems, I think, is the sort of of the ones it's sort of the strongest branding one, and you can just see, you can imagine big dinosaurs, and it's a good brand. The film's coming out again. I think that one will work. So I'm looking forward to that actually.
Good. Right, there's been further scrutiny around the Arbitrum gaming, what's it called, Catalyst. Program that was launched in 2024. It was then worth 220 million, but it was Arbitrum token. So I mean that's just gone right down since. It launched, I think it was proposed, wasn't it, in March 2024. It was approved in June. One of these sort of enthusiastic group that wanted to approve it was the Treasure DAO, which have since left Arbitrum for CK Sync. So that's sort of part of the thing, is that this was all initiated from people that have now left the ecosystem. There were criticisms raised for this gaming fund in October by some Arbitrum DAO members. It was sort of a proposal then was that some of the money should be going back into into the Arbitrum DAO, whilst they would still have some money to keep going. Now there's been sort of calls to completely withdraw all the money and shut down this fund, which is, to be clear, the what's it called, off-chain labs, the Arbitrum gaming guy, David Bolger. He said it's to sort of clarify, it's not a fund, it's a catalyst program, whatever that sort of means, really. But so there's a bit of, I don't know, would you call it a disaster? You didn't say disaster.
Well, it's another example of just DAOs not being good at stuff. I mean, it is clown central to some degree, and I had him on the podcast, Carol from Treasure. I mean, it's mainly their fault. I mean, it's a. I don't know if there's anything deeper that he sort of didn't want to talk, didn't want to discuss, but it's just sort of clown central that they were the Treasure DAO, are sort of grounds up, boots up, self-launched, fair launch token project, been around for ages, got some interesting stuff going in there, but never been sort of mass market, and they were on Arbitrum. They were the first big gaming organization on Arbitrum, and they wanted more games on there, and because Arbitrum was very DeFi, so they had a certain amount of power in that DAO system. But there's sort of Treasure DAO, which is a DAO, and there's Arbitrum, which is a DAO. So they put together this proposal for 220 million ARB tokens at the time, and Carol and Treasure really pushed it through. So even at the time, not everyone agreed with it. I mean, Arbitrum is not a very game-focused, sort of platform then as now. Quite why they wanted to have sort of quite such a large sum of money. It was sort of $220 million was sort of the number quoted at the time. Obviously, that number goes up and down depending on the price of the token. But that's just insane, and it wasn't very clear. I think how they were going to use that sort of money, because you just end up sort of the more money you sort of have, the more you end up wasting if it's not put together properly. Anyway, they got it through and then promptly left, and that was just the Treasure knew that they were sort of going to leave at the time. I don't know. It's quite hard to see how it all lines up, but so mainly I think this is, if there's any faults to be laid at, it's sort of Treasure's fault for knowing they were probably not going to stay with Arbitrum and pushing this thing through. And they sort of say that by pushing it through, they sort of realised that they wanted to leave. It was sort of, so yeah, but then obviously they left with all their games, so there wasn't really any strong gaming community on Arbitrum anymore. And then the value of the tokens has dropped 80% or something, as most tokens have. So it's not that much money anyway. And the other thing there's not really been any structure around it. It's not really been much progress. There was quite a lot of that funding was to set up an organization to sort of, obviously run a grants program and choose who's going to get all this money and stuff. And that doesn't seem to have been done in a very transparent way, although obviously there's a bit of he said this, she said that sort of going on. But anyway, we'll see. I mean, it does make sense now that all the gaming people of sort of Arbitrum have sort of left. I mean, there are people,
still like proof of play is still there.
Proof of play is still there, yeah. But they're sort of I don't know how much involvement they have in the DAO. They're sort of like a commercially funded organisation. They don't need they don't need it from that point of view. So it does sort of make sense that with the most positive spin on it, they attempted to do something, it didn't work out for various reasons, no blame attached. Let's just sort of shut it down and move on. And as I say, they've spent some money. So the moment the proposal, I think it's a proposal that's gone in, is let's just shut it down and whatever money's left goes back into the main treasury. And it's not like you can't use it for games, but this whole games, it does show, again, the strengths and weaknesses of DAOs. You can get stuff through, but you need to build sort of organizational rigor and structure even within a DAO organization to get the stuff through and then get it done. And if you don't do that, and if you leave halfway through, then the DAO is obviously totally right to go. This didn't work out. So I don't think it's particularly vitriolic. It doesn't seem like it's just like this isn't working. So we'll see what happens. But again, it's just like all this sort of blockchain stuff. The concept of a DAO is very ethereal, and wouldn't it be great if we could all vote on and obviously we talk mainly about DAOs when they go wrong. So there's a whole bunch of DAOs that don't go wrong. I mean, like MakerDAO is a famous DeFi one that's had its ups and downs, but it's still it's probably a good example as any. But they are very tricky things to sort of maintain at a large scale, I think. So.
Well, it's a bit like life in general and kind of democracy, isn't it? Democracy go wrong with it, sort of.
No, exactly. Yeah.
That's what you get if you have sort of strong values around kind of participation, community participation. So you're going to have to handle a bit of these things, aren't you?
Well, and particularly for DAOs,
but you might have to have a structure.
Particularly for DAOs, because they tend to have large amounts of money attached to them in a very in a very extractable way. So in a democracy, you can't really. I mean, you sort of have like Donald Trump's going to give us all tax cuts, sort of thing. But that's not like we're going to take the entire U.S. Treasury and run away with it. Which, I mean, not DAOs aren't saying that, but there is a more direct way of just going. Should we all have 1 million tokens each? Because there's only like 10 of us in the DAO or something.
Yeah, no, exactly. Right, we move on. Let's talk about Boomland and their announcement that they are taking over the Cantina Royale, the mobile shooter. Tell us about Boomland generally. You know loads about the project, having worked with them in the past, and what it is and what this means to the ecosystem. Yep. It's the first game that's not coming from Boombit. It's sort of a first third-party game that bringing in.
Yeah, so Boombit is the Polish mobile games company, and Boomland is the Web3 arm of Boombit. And the idea really was Boombit has all these, they're not hyper casual, but they're sort of casual to mid-core mobile games. So it's quite successful running those, but it wanted to add Web3 to them. So Hunters on Chain is the prime example. They have two tokens, the BGM token and the Boom token. They do different things in the game, and they've just finished their second season airdrop on Immutable. So that game, it's not sort of properly live yet. The token's not properly live. The game's live, but the token's not properly live, I suppose. So that's their main thing, and they've done quite well with that. When they've run the campaigns, they've had hundreds of thousands of people playing that. So that's sort of the first step. The second step was they're taking other games from Boom. There's an archery game, I think, and I can't remember, the driving game, various things, and just like funneling people, not doing such a heavy Web3 integration, so just doing this BGem token as a sort of reward token, and trying to funnel people in to the ecosystem and to hit Hunters on Chain, which is the bigger game. So they've got a whole plan for doing that. They've been doing a bunch of stuff on Telegram as well, obviously, to sort of get that bigger audience. So this seems like an opportunistic sort of thing. So there's a game called Cantina Royale, which is a mobile game, a mobile sort of battle royale shooter, very sort of mid-core, I guess you would say. It's out on mobile. I actually played it a little bit after this announcement. It's quite nice. It's a bit sort of very simple run around, shoot other people sort of game, but good sort of, it seems like a good sort of infrastructure and good sort of Web 2 economics around it. Not quite sure how the Web 3 worked. I think there seemed to be NFTs you could own, and then people borrowed them to play the NFT side, the sort of the arena, the higher end arena side of the game. The weird thing was it was on the multiverse blockchain that was originally called the Elrond blockchain, which is out of Romania, and I think the Cantina Royale team are also from that part of Europe, so there may have been a link there. But anyway, they were running on this blockchain that basically no one else is running any games off of. So, I get basically they got sort of tokens to do that. That's their funding mechanic, but it didn't really work out. It couldn't scale it. The CEO died last year as well, apparently. So they basically just run out of money. So this is like loads of Web3 game companies in this sort of similar situation. But actually, the Cantina Royale game was actually out live on the app stores. It seemed like I'm sure there's lots of other things they wanted to add, but it seemed like it was sort of working pretty well. Boomland have just sort of taken it over, so it doesn't seem like they spent any money. It's not like they've acquired it with money. But they've just sort of taken over development of it. Maybe some of the original Cantina Royale people are still involved. I don't know, but Boomland know what they're doing when it comes to operating mobile games. So they've got access to that now. People who had so Cantina Royale had a live token. So seven of those, for every 7 of those tokens, you're going to get one Boom token, and they're going to sort of try and match the NFTs. So if you have a rare NFT in Cantina Royale, you get a sort of equivalent rare one in Hunters on Chain. So it's sort of like a sort of acquisition, a bit of an audience sort of grab. It seems like Cantina Royale will probably, they'll keep it running for a bit. They've said they're taking it offline to sort of relaunch it, so that game will still be there. So those NFTs will still work, but you're also getting these the Boomland ones, the Hunters on Chain one as well. So that's sort of nice for the people who thought they're holding tokens on a game that's basically shutting down. And it just goes into thinking Boomland wanting to sort of expand its audience and thinking this game's probably got, they've looked at the metrics, probably got quite good sort of retention metrics, but just hasn't got enough audience. So they feel like they can sort of help on that sort of marketing side. It just adds another good game for them to bring into their ecosystem. So it's sort of been more generally, it's been interesting that there haven't been more of this sort of like, I mean, it's not quite a roll up, but you can imagine some of the bigger companies, or maybe like a Sky Mavis, or some of these sort of blockchain companies just sort of coming in and because at the moment, if you want to buy a games company that's sort of basically not going anywhere, you can get them not quite for free, but sort of for free. So you can do a big content roll-up, and obviously that gets complicated, and you have to manage it all, and maybe that's why people aren't doing it. But there is sort of something there, particularly with blockchain, as Boomland have done. They've said if you own these NFTs, we're going to airdrop you some of these other sort of stuff for free, like free marketing. So I guess we will see some of that. I guess it just goes to show there's not really a lot of enthusiasm or sort of money in blockchain games at the moment for someone to come in and do a bigger sort of roll up. But I guess these sort of opportunistic opportunities will be around.
Yeah. And Boomland used to build on Polygon and moved to Immutable CQ last year, didn't they?
Yeah.
And it's still sort of awaiting the Boom token to go live on Immutable. Is that right? Or is it live?
Yeah, it's live. It's live it's live in the game because you have these NFTs called Boom Bags, which you sort of burn, and you can trade the NFTs. So it's sort of, there is a price for the Boom token, but it's not available as a token at the moment. So it's yeah.
Good. So talking about Immutable, actually, we're going to talk about RavenQuest now. 14 days post-launch, post-global launch. You've been playing it quite a bit. So it's gathered like 12. There's 12,000 daily active wallets and about 30,000 weekly. So it's doing all right.
Yeah. So it's so I've been playing it a lot. I've been sort of dipping into it. So it's a PC game. It's basically there was a a Web 2 game called, I can't remember, Raven Dawn it was called, from this Canadian developer, like a really small little developer. Well, it's a bit bigger now, but 70 people now, I think. But basically, they ran this, a top-down pixel, pretty hardcore MMORPG. So everyone's running around in the same world, doing missions and quite a complex sort of economy. And they've been running that, and they got up to about 250,000 monthly active users. So not a massive hit, but pretty solid. And then they've taken that basis and then started to add Web 3 to it. And that is what RavenQuest is. So it's sort of a brand new game, but to some degree a sort of sequel, I suppose. And it's done quite well in some of its sort of testing, test play tests, and as I say, it went live 14 days ago. It's sort of hard to judge exactly what the on-chain activity is. So I've been playing it, and I've not signed a wallet transaction or anything like that I've known of. So obviously you can have stuff going on in the background. Looking at the data from that radar, the number of wallets is exactly the same as the number of transactions. So it looks like what they're measuring is there's some people may be logging on. It seems like is probably what they're measuring, although I'm not quite sure. I'd say I've not done that when I've been playing the game. It just felt like a Web 2 game. Partly that is because the token's not live yet. So the token's going live soon. And in fact, today there's some aspects of the economy are going live in terms of Web 3-ness. So there's the in-game silver, which is an off-chain currency, is now going to be convertible into the Quest crypto token, although that's not going to be live on exchange. It's just going to be live in the game. But when that Quest token's live, you can do stuff like buy, sort of start the guild systems and various other things. There's a ascension system, so you have in-game items that are not NFTs, but you spend the Quest to make them NFTs. And there is a whole bunch of NFT stuff as well. So there's land, which you can use for sort of farming or certain different sort of tasks. So you have all these different professions and skill-based skill trees and stuff. So it's quite. I was looking at the white paper. It is quite detailed. And until all this stuff goes live, I guess the tokens and everything, you won't get a good idea really of how it sort of pans out. So to me, people have been interested in it. I don't think, obviously it's, for the style of game, I think it's a good example of those games. But given the original Web 2 version got to say 250,000, I'm not sure where we are with blockchain. That blockchain goes, we're going to double that audience. If anything, we see adding blockchain reduces the audience. Sort of thing.
So when you say that you haven't signed anything, you don't sign anything with your wallet. Do you log in with the immutable passport, or do you not need to do any?
Well, no. So it's a PC game, so you download the PC client and just play through that, and you do have. So there is also the web page so they know your game account is connected to a wallet address, but there's nothing in the game I've seen where it goes sign a transaction. I think they're trying to not do that, so they're separating the two. But that's not to say in the background when you log in with your game account, they do a transaction on Immutable to say this person's logged in. That's sort of what I don't know. And the other thing you have to be a bit careful with that radar is it just tracks certain smart contracts. So if it doesn't have all the smart contracts for some reason, then there may be loads of activity that it's not tracking. So, we'll sort of wait and see a bit on that. So, but I think it's a sort of a solid. It's definitely a solid game if you like those sort of games. I mean, I don't have a lot of time. They say you've got thousands of hours of gameplay here. I mean, I'm not going to get up to 100 hours in the best will in the world. I just don't have the time, and it's sort of quite slow, and I'm a bit clumsy, and I keep forgetting what the special moves are, or even how to use the map, and you end up wandering around for a bit trying to find the thing you're supposed to be finding. But you can just see it's a solid game, and guilds will be a big thing of it. And I just kind of think it will be a good example of hopefully a well integrated blockchain economy that doesn't blow up. But I can't see. I mean, Immutable very much like this is the most streamed Web3 game ever, and all that sort of really big on Twitch. I can't see. It's just not a spectacular game like that. There may be some people on Twitch who stream it and people watch it because they watch those streamers. But I don't think there's going to. I just can't see it being we must go and check out the big stream on RavenQuest. So I think it'll be solid, and I think maybe Immutable just needs a few solid games doing really well and showing complexity. And it's a game that anyone who likes those RPGs can play and go this and just go, oh, this is a good game, and not worry about the NFT stuff on it. So from that point of view, I think it's actually maybe more important for those sort of reasons. And I keep saying this about lots of games and never quite pull it off, but I can imagine this is a game that I play, a couple of times a week. I'm quite looking forward today, if I get some time in the evening, to do another half an hour on it. I'm very low level. I'm like level 9, and a lot of stuff you have to unlock at level 10 and level 20, and that has that unlock thing. So I'm a total noob on it, but I do find in these early stages, there's a momentum that I want to sort of get in with it. And will I get to spend $300 to buy a NFT land, the smallest one? I'm not quite sure, but possibly I could. That would be nice to feel like I enjoyed the game enough to get to that stage, and then wanted to specialize in something.
What would that unlock for you then? How would that enhance your game experience?
Well, without getting too much into the weeds, so if you don't have an NFT, you can use. There's a bit of land you can use in the city to do the farming sort of stuff that you need to do to go through the game. If you have your own land, you basically do that on your in a boosted manner. So you have your own area, and you just level up through things faster, and you can have more inventory and all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
And when you mentioned the economy, you said that the token will not be tradable on exchanges or live on exchanges, but
it's not yet.
It's sort of an in-game. Oh, it's not yet, but when it launches,
it will be.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
All right. Good. Right, and finally, we should mention the Immortal Rising 2 IMT token went live this week as well. You got small allocation, didn't you?
Yeah. So
talk more generally how that's relevant.
Yeah. So this is interesting that again it's Immutable. So this is now by miles the most popular game on Immutable, or the most on-chain active game ecosystem on Immutable. Immortal Rising 2, obviously a sequel to Immortal Rising, which is a Web 2 game out of Korea, a developer called Bad Beans, and it is an idle RPG. So you're not doing any fighting yourself. Everything's auto, and you're just basically gaining all these. It's very, very complicated. I don't understand it. All these resources you're getting, and you're using these resources to level up various parts. So you have your character, and it has loads of gear, and it has loads of spells, and it has loads of other sort of keys you need to open certain dungeons. And I won't go into it all because I don't understand it. There's loads of it. That's what you have in these RPGs. It just auto plays, and if you really want to go fast on this stuff, you obviously go in the shop and buy, battle passes and blah blah blah, and level up faster. It's all about the meta game, really. So again, playing the game, there's no active logging in to using your Passport wallet. So most of the activity that's been happening actually is people just logging into the game's website to go, I've logged in for this airdrop. So obviously the token's gone live now, and there's been like, I don't know, 6 months of people logging in to get this airdrop thing. So I've been playing the game for that 6 months, but I've been logging in pretty much every day, and I got 106 tokens. The token is worth about 20. Oh no, let me check. Let me just look this up. It is about 0.02 cents. So I got like a few dollars worth. The idea was you could claim 50% on the claim day, which I think was Tuesday, and you could get the remaining 50% in 3 days' time, or you could basically put it off for another 90 days, another 3 months, and get an extra 50%. So I did that. So instead of 106 tokens, I get 159 tokens, but I won't get them all for 3 months. You can stake the token. So the 53 I've staked. Currently like 200% sort of annualized revenue. So if I go now, I can claim my one reward token that I've earned in the day. I could go and claim that if I wanted to restake it. So they have those sort of basic elements there. Quite what the token is for, not quite clear, I have to say at the moment. And like all these things, launching tokens is just a really bad time to do it. So the token, is obviously when you do an airdrop as well, people generally just want to sort of sell it off and get whatever. And obviously for $3, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do it for $100 anyway. But you know, a lot of people have got a very small amount, so they probably won't be bothered to do it. But quite how it builds long term, I think it's one of the problems with these very say like a RavenQuest game. You have to throw time at it, and you have to get better, and you slowly level up your character, and you feel like there's progression, and the token is part of the economy. With an idle game, it's much harder because you do have an economy in an idle game, but those games are much more ephemeral. You know, so it's harder to get a token in there. So we'll wait and see. But I mean, you know, I guess for Immutable, you know, it's a sort of a good week, and they've got the Tokyo Beast game going live, and everything. I think that's going to be in the next couple of months as well. So there's quite a lot of stuff going live for them. So I guess they'll be happy about that.
And not to mention, in talking of Immutable, that the SEC closed its investigation, whatever, into the company, and so that's been hailed sort of big news for Immutable and the future belief in the company. So, and yeah, actually, the IMX token shot up a bit, didn't it, following that news this week. Anyway, let's end on that note. We'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.